we are going to talk with you about advertising in the academic world. And it's not a secret to anyone that we are surrounded by advertising, even if we don't notice this. A considerable amount of in-depth research into the influence of advertising on human consciousness has been conducted. And it has been proven that we are indeed under the influence of advertising. Again, even if we don't notice this. We'll start with the definition and some basic techniques in advertising and advertising in general. And then we will move on to advertising in the academic world. We'll also look at some techniques, some advertisements that I have found published by some laboratories people or just the administration of the High School of Economics. And at the end, we're going to have some writing practice with a focus on the linguistic techniques and the structure. So first, let's talk with you a bit about the history of advertising. Here you see the definition taken from the Britannica Encyclopedia. And you see that advertising comprises in itself both the techniques and practices. So the techniques that we are going to discuss with you today also are also included in this phenomenon of advertising. As for the history of advertising, actually it has quite a long one. And in the ancient and medieval worlds, advertising was conducted by word of mouth. So people were sharing opinions, recommending each other some products or services. The first step towards modern advertising came with the development of printing in the 15th and the 16th centuries. And already in the next century, weekly newspapers in London began to carry advertisements. So first printed advertising appeared. Then by the 18th century, such advertising was flourishing, so mostly printed advertising. The great expansion of business in the 19th century was accompanied by the growth of advertising industry. And it is in that century that saw the establishment of advertising agencies. So that were developing and that were also paid for advertising. Then by the early 20th century, agencies became involved in producing the advertising message itself, including copy and artwork. And by approximately the 1920s, agencies had to come into being that could plan and execute complete advertising campaigns, from initial research to copy preparation and placement in various media. In the modern world, in the 21st century, which is characterized by intensely competitive consumer market, advertisers increasingly use digital technology to call greater attention to product. So this was brief history of advertising to see how deep its roots are. Oh, yes, and there's some images. That was one of the first samples of advertising from some ancient history. And one of the recent, well, not very recent, I think that was one of the first printed advertisements of soap bar pairs. Advertising definitely serves a number of purposes. And it is interesting to notice that there are three of them. The informative advertising definitely creates awareness of the brand, products, services, and ideas. It announces new products and programs and can educate people about what the product is like, how it can be used, what its benefits are, and so to establish somehow some image of the product. Another type of advertising is persuasive one, whose aim is to persuade customers, clients to buy something, or, well, in other words, to sell the products. Finally, there is another type. It's called reminder advertising, whose aim is to remind people about the need for a product. So people already know about the product. They don't need to be informed for the first time about it, but they need to be reminded all the time that they experience the need for a product or service, or well, again, underlying the features and benefits the product will provide the clients if they purchase it, even promptly, better promptly. These are the three purposes of advertising, and we're going to return to them again when we have some practice. Now I would like us to talk a bit about the types of advertising so that we can differentiate between different versions. There are a number of types. I will briefly characterize all of them. So first comes print advertising. You can easily see it in newspapers, magazines, in some flyers in the street. So this is one of the most popular type of advertising. Then comes direct mail advertising. These are the advertisements that we receive by email from some companies, reminding us that there is some promo code or some discount to the goods that they sell or services. The next type comprises advertising on TV, so through 20, 30, or 60 seconds TV commercials. Again, we are all familiar with this type. The type that is a bit old-fashioned, in my opinion, so radio advertising. These advertisements are played between the programs or during the breaks on the radio. Social media, so the one of the probably newest types. Social media advertising takes place on platforms to target specific audiences. That could be the young, the teenagers, for instance, or people of certain groups of certain areas of interests. Here comes quite a new, at least the type that I did not know how to name first, but then I did some research and found out it's called native advertising. It's a type of digital advertising in which advertisements look similar to the rest of the page content. For example, pay-per-click advertisements. So the advertisements that you see on the internet that look like the rest of the content on the page. Outdoor advertising, again, so any advertisements outside in the streets. It could be in public places or even on transit vehicles. So whatever we see there is called outdoor advertising. Guerrilla advertising. These are creative advertisements, which, for instance, rather than advertising on a bus stop, advertising something on a bus stop can draw some mural on the sidewalk, pavement, advertising their services. So if you walk along the pavement, along the street, and you see something printed on the road, so this is guerrilla advertising. And finally, the last type that we're going to get acquainted with is product placement. I guess everyone knows the advertisement, somehow advertisement, yes, of Aston Martin in James Bond films. So this is product placement. So when a company pays to have their product embedded in some media content, for example, some TV show or a movie. There are more types, but we will stop at these 9 types. And now I would like you to, I'm going to show you some types of advertisements. Can you please define the type? I hope that you are more or less familiar with the images. Probably not this one, but the following ones. So which type of advertisement is this one? That is outdoor advertising. Good, thank you. We'll turn back to this image a bit later. So the next image. What could this be? Which type? I meant it as a print one, but without the context, further background. It's hard to figure out what it is exactly, probably. Could be native if we see it on some website. Yes, the next type. Maybe you are even subscribed to this channel. Yeah, social media, Telegram channel. Advertising the conference. And yes, one more. This is, by the way, the Basman building of HSE. I will show you the list. I would say that this is print plus probably guerrilla advertising, because like quite creative. It is not on the wall next to the main office, for example, of the School of Foreign Languages, but it is in the main hall, and like you pass by and you notice it. Sometimes even like by mistake maybe, but you still pay attention to it. So it could be a guerrilla. It's inside, so probably I will not call it outdoor. It's inside the building. And I think for it to be a product placement, we would need some film. So probably not product placement. So print could be also guerrilla advertising. Can you please look at all these advertisements, please? And now let's analyze them from the point of view of the structure. So they all have something in common. So some kind of a structure, some components. Can you please look around again and write what they have in common? What the structural elements, what components they have? Something that unites all of them. Could be a motto, not everywhere, but yes, could be something, some persuasive phrase, I suppose. Headings and bullets, key product features, which is definitely true. So some benefits that we will get. Yes, something interesting for the target audience. Definitely invitation. So they invite us to do something, or they persuade us to register or to take part in the conference. What I've also noticed looking at these advertisements is the use of colors. I think most advertisements contain some color schemes. And here, actually, colors can be very interesting, because every color is associated with and triggers certain emotions. Here you can see in this slide color emotion guide, which I have found on the internet. And here you see that logos of some world famous companies are given as illustrations of these colors used to trigger some emotions. So companies wisely choose colors, and whenever you print something, if it is a print advertisement or so in social media or anywhere, think wisely about the colors that you're going to choose. And here is the summary of the structural elements. I think you've mentioned most of them. The ones that haven't been named yet are fonts. So you can use bold, italics, or you can underline the most important information. If we turn back, we will see here in a number of cases when, so bold, here underline parts, something in also in bold. Colors also used, and interesting fonts are used in a variety of advertising. So fonts also can attract attention. And pictures, of course, you can have some vivid illustrations. Then, of course, from the advertisement, it should be clear who the addressee is, so who the target audience is. So to students, who are we creating the advertisement for? So to students, to colleagues, to students, and so on and so forth. So it is clear for almost from the first lines. The goal, so why the advertisement is created, kind of short description with the bullet points of the benefits of how the target audience will benefit from participating or enrolling on participating in or enrolling on some course. Key dates, if it is necessary, and contact information, which you have already mentioned in links and QR codes. So these are the structural elements. Also keep them in mind. We will need them later on and we'll try to experiment with them. Now let's talk more about advertising techniques. So we looked with you at the layout. Now let's dig deeper into the advertising techniques. I'm going to show you several slides with images, and you will need to match advertising techniques with the images. For example, we have one image and one phrase from an advertisement and the list of advertising techniques. So can you find the names for these techniques? You're right, that is E. If we look at number 2, I can see a number of options that it is statistics. Could be. I won't argue with that, but here probably we would need like 15 million out of how many? Like the whole world? Probably it's not such a big number of people, such a large number of people. I think for statistics we need something more, maybe the percentage. Probably for endorsement we would need some 15 million people, women, including I don't know, can't think of anyone. Melania Trump, let's say, trusted Pantene and you. So we would need someone famous to endorse, to support the company, the product. Probably also here, to make it a true appeal to authority, we would need some like this hairdresser, like the world famous hairdresser trusts Pantene. So we will need some person, some kind of authority. So maybe, okay, so probably was the challenging example. That is B, bandwagon appeal. Maybe some of you, I don't know if you have visited Natalia's seminar. Was, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken. It was devoted to some fallacies. And one of the very frequent fallacies that we come across is bandwagon appeal. So this type of technique involves convincing the customers to join the group of people who have bought the product and be on like the winning side. And the technique usually relies heavily on the psychological tactic of FOMO, fear of missing out. So like it's frequently used in advertising, showing how many actually people have already benefited from a product. So if you want to be part of them, to join them, so you will need to choose the product as well. So bandwagon appeal here. 2 more. So again, the same list. All right, and I think here the majority have guessed it correctly, that number 3 is statistics. So probably we will not need to comment on this. So that is I. 99.9% of bacteria, yes. It shows us statistics, quite persuasive statistics. But 4 is more interesting. And this is like the definition of appeal to authority. Yes, appealing to someone's expertise, someone who is more professional and knowledgeable than we are. Well done. 2 more. Now number 5 and 6. Number 5 has turned out to be rather challenging as well. This is false dilemma. I think also Natalia has spoken about this in her seminar about fallacies. Also, very frequent fallacy used in debates, arguments, and in the advertisements are not an exception then. So a false dilemma is a fallacy that misinterprets the issue by presenting only two mutually exclusive options rather than the full range of options. And here, this advertisement by MasterCard presents the viewer with only two options, like priceless items or experiences and MasterCard. So it is an unfair set of choices. That is why it uses the false dilemma fallacy to appeal to viewers. So either or, there is nothing in between. This is what they present. So this is called false dilemma. And the majority of you are absolutely right that 6 is endorsement. Yes, Leonardo DiCaprio endorses the product. Usually some celebrities advertise products by telling their own experiences with the product, or just being shot in TV commercials or having their images printed next to the product in print advertising. Well done. So we are given with 3 more pictures, so the last ones. Everyone has unanimously chosen C, so complimenting the customers for the event. That's right. Probably no need to comment on this, but I will a bit comment on 8 and 9. I agree that probably 8. So probably number 8 combines both fonts and composition. I meant it as an example of composition because, at least in my opinion, what stands out here is how the words are organized. So just like the use of color psychology, so the psychology of colors that I have already shown to you, so balanced composition is extremely important in every type of visual. So the composition is how the elements are placed in a visual space. So where the light comes from, so where the focus in this composition is. So here we see the glass with coffee made of words that are connected with coffee in Starbucks, or can be associated with this company. Number 9 was meant by me as an illustration of fonts, quite an unusual one. That is an advertisement by McDonald's of their own, of a new version of McFlurry, which you can mix on your own. So you can choose the ingredients, and this is why they have the name here, as the ingredients are printed in a form of letters. So this is what a person can choose to mix their own ice cream. Maybe also a kind of composition, depends on how you place these things, but more about fonts, because here letters, of course, are meant. We have just got acquainted with a number of techniques, more I would say visual techniques, but also emotional and some techniques that matter when it comes to content, so something that we are affected by. But as we probably can conclude from this part, a lot depends on the appeal. So if an advertisement sounds or looks appealing to us, we are likely to be affected by it. So in the next slide, I have collected a number of other examples of advertisements. Can you please tell me if they appeal to you or not? So number 1, take a look. So, and decide whether you find it appealing or not. An interesting thing is smiling people. So they should look appealing to us. That's true. Yes, actually, this advertisement has been criticized in the public because it somehow points to the fact that women should stay at home and like do cleaning up. So some saw it a bit, some traces of feminism and maybe sexism in this. Okay, next one, quite a creative one. This is actually a photo with the logo, but you should imagine a true shower on the beach with water with the Sprite logo. So that's a photo. That's a real thing. The majority of opinions in the chat are quite negative, so probably didn't work, even though quite creative. Next one. Everyone is familiar with IKEA, and one of their advertising campaigns included putting some furniture on bus stops. It looks cozy, and I think they meant it to look cozy, so you feel at home there. But not hygienic, agreed. And the last one. This is a bench in a park without the seat. I guess I would be angry and upset in this situation. Some people find it creative, yes, that we need to continue running, so it encourages, and at least it is meant to encourage people to be active. And yes, I think there are the benches, maybe there is, I'm not sure, I think there is even a normal one, a couple of like meters further, a normal bench. So we can probably conclude from the images that we have just seen here that it matters not only what you write, but also like where you advertise something, how you do it, and you need to think about the target audience, how it will perceive your advertisement, whether it will appeal to the audience or not. Sometimes, unfortunately, advertising turns out to be a total failure. If maybe in these advertisements the public will split into two groups, the ones who like it and the ones that just feel disgust or anger seeing these advertisements. The further advertisements that I'm going to demonstrate to you, they were criticized by the majority of people, and the companies even had to stop their advertising campaigns. So I'm going to show you images. Can you please try to think what the reason for failure was in each case? So that's Starbucks advertisement with the word collapse. I probably may give you a hint that this advertisement appeared in 2002 in America. So here the problem was with the associations. So this image, it was a real promotional poster for Starbucks Coffee Company's new drinks. It was displayed, it appeared in 2002. It was displayed in about 3,000 Starbucks outlets throughout America and Canada. Until actually an inquiry from the New York Post appeared, saying that the image resembled the terror attacks on New York's Twin Towers. Therefore, Starbucks had to pull the material from their stores on June the 7th, so just a couple of months later. So the advertising did not work. Probably we can see the Twin Towers and even some kind of a plane, perhaps. So associations. Cultural, historical associations matter, so you need to keep them in mind when creating your advertisement as well. And the next one. So here I have two companies, Dove and Nive. So what was the problem here? This campaign backfired, and many people called for product boycotts. Many women felt that Dove was trying to tell them that there was a white woman inside every other woman, and like at the core, and they had to remove their masks somehow or like remove their ethnicity. So it has turned out to be quite a controversy. And also social media were filled with some posts saying that with quotes like black women are dirty, and when you use Dove soap they will be clean and white. Yes, so all this did not contribute to a positive image of both companies, so they had to remove their advertisements. So racial issues should also be taken into account. Next, advertising failure, that by American Motors. Well, actually, probably also a challenging one. We need to know a bit of the history of this car brand and this particular car. The problem is fast means a killer, so it may sound a bit too aggressive for Spanish speaking consumers. That's why there was a problem with that. So translation. Whenever we translate some names of events or the products that we're going to sell, some services. So, and if you need to translate the name, make sure that you check whether there are any connotations in the foreign language attributed to this word. The last one. That's about McDonald's. The problem is with the slang. So when McDonald's came up with this marketing campaign, their ad executive didn't know what the phrase "I'd hit it" mean or it might mean. So they simply heard kids using this jargon in the streets and decided to appeal to the younger audience and use this in the slogan. Unfortunately for McDonald's, apart from what they meant, it could also mean, at least according to Urban Dictionary, to have, I will quote, to have sex with a woman, but not to respect her. So the campaign was a failure, which brings us to the idea, kind of a conclusion, that whenever we want to use some modern words in order to appeal to the younger audience, we should double check all the possible meanings of this or that word before inserting this word into our advertisement. So we have spoken with you about techniques, so types, techniques, what makes advertisement appealing from a visual and meaning point of view. We looked at failures so that we can avoid them in the future. Now let's turn to language itself. And here we'll work with linguistic devices. In the slide, I'm showing you two samples of advertisements. So a visual one and just a phrase. Can you please tell me what kind of linguistic feature is used here to persuade people to buy the product or to do something? So probably what makes it persuasive? So probably just to lead you to the right track, since we are analyzing linguistic, so that's an imperative. Do, be, pay. Imperatives are very frequently used in advertising to create the atmosphere as if you're talking to a friend or someone just recommends you something. And here I should ask you a question. You all must be rather experienced in academic writing. Do we use imperatives in academic writing? In articles, proposals? We don't use imperatives unless these are some instructions. So if your article includes some kind of instruction or a guide step by step, this could be, but usually we avoid imperatives. So this is what we will not see in academic writing. So keep in mind now imperatives for advertising. The next linguistic feature, it is illustrated by these two advertisements, one again visual, one written. So what's the linguistic feature used here? here it's all about personal pronouns. You. Um, it has several objectives and how it serves several goals. First, it can create the feeling of priority, as if the advertisement is meant towards you, the reader. You can imagine that it was written for you only, since it addresses you with second person pronoun. And also, it creates the feeling of a personal relationship. It's not just an abstract person who the advertisement is oriented towards, but you, as if we are acquainted with you. If we continue looking at linguistic devices, we can't avoid talking about intensifiers. Definitely in advertising, we'll use plenty of adjectives, but if we want them to sound more emphatic, we will need some intensifiers. The most frequent intensifiers are, of course, the ones that you see here. However, not all of them can be used with strong or non-gradable adjectives. Non-gradable adjectives are those that we cannot differentiate different like grades of. For example, instead of like very small, we can say tiny. Tiny already means like the smallest somehow. Like it's very, 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 very small. So tiny. It's a non-gradable adjective. Very big is enormous, for example. Or huge. So they already mean the extremes. And very good is excellent, for instance, or perfect. They also mean extremes and they are not non-gradable. For them, we use other strong adjectives, other intensifiers. And we need to differentiate between them in our texts. However, there are also other types of adjectives which come from particular intensifiers. For instance, we can say highly successful, but we somehow can't say this option because these two words do not collocate. And the question is bound to arise here. So what should we do and how can we know which intensifier to use with which adjective? Here, dictionaries of collocations can come quite handy. For instance, I hope that some of you are already familiar with the Oxford Dictionary of Collocations, where you can type the word. Well, for example, I was interested in adjectives that collocate with the word opportunity, so I could say plenty of words. You can type an adjective and it will demonstrate to you all the adverbs, all the intensifiers that can be used with them, with this word. For instance, I have typed the word excellent. That's an adjective. I'm interested in adverbs. So here are the intensifiers. So it's like absolutely, like truly, really something that I can use in an advertisement, for instance. And here I suggest practicing this a bit. Open Oxford Dictionary of Collocations, so the website, and fill in the gaps for the adjectives after the gaps. Just one intensifier, one adverb per gap will be quite enough. Actually, this dictionary can provide us with a variety of intensifiers. So probably I should some light on the keys. I even could not couldn't choose one word for each gap. It depends on what you're going to say, but it's crucial that, for example, here, for example, here we can say very committed and very successful, but we can't say very qualified. So this dictionary helps us to find intensifiers for the adjectives in our text, according to the meaning that we want to transmit to the audience. There's a limited number of adjectives that we can adverbs that we can use with adjective popular, and this was the idea of this task, to show you that yes, this dictionary provides you with it's a good source, a quite effective source of diversifying vocabulary. So I guess the secret of this task has already been uncovered, so we can probably move on. Yes, these are just the screenshots. Try to use it when you approach some advertisement, and any academic text as well. Just choose the words carefully. Another useful source that you can use whenever writing something is thesaurus. I have here the screenshot from the Cambridge Dictionary, and it's crucial. I have here a screenshot from the Cambridge Dictionary. It's crucial that if you want to see synonyms or other or antonyms and examples with them, you need to choose here in this search bar thesaurus. So this option, not definitions, but thesaurus. For example, I've typed the word interesting, which in itself is like meaningless. It's quite empty. The word is used too frequently, so it has lost any certain meaning. So this thesaurus provides you with a number of synonyms as well as characteristics on the formality. So you can, if you don't want to repeat one and the same word, you can find some synonyms or antonyms here. So another useful source. So where are we now? So we have discussed with you the structure, so it should look appealing. You can use a variety of techniques that contribute to the structure. We have discussed with you the types and techniques of advertisements, and we have practiced with you some linguistic devices that somehow also contribute to providing some positive influence, providing some positive impression, make it a positive impression on the reader or listener. Let's finally move on to advertising in the academic world. And here I would like to first provide you with a list of genres. The list is not complete, the genres of writing in academia. I'm sure that you are acquainted with the list. You write, you already have experience of writing some of them, and also some of our seminars are devoted to writing, to excelling your skills in these genres. But we shouldn't forget that the academic world can also feature advertisements, that advertising is also part and parcel of our world. And interestingly enough, if here in these genres, the objectives somehow, or the main function is to inform, here in advertisements, this informative function comes last. You mostly persuade, you sell, or you remind people of something, which is totally different here. So the one of the main features here, the functions, is to inform the reader about something. So you should keep this in mind, not to confuse the genres. And here I would like to ask you a question, whether you advertise anything, maybe your laboratory, your department, or if not, maybe what you might need to advertise. what your target audience could be, and if you have some experience in advertising, where do you place the text? Despite the fact that we are used to the idea that academic writing is more about articles, proposals, and so on, advertising or advertisements should also be put in the list of genres in academic writing. And an example probably that you all have seen is the following text. That's the announcement about our today's seminar. Find and underline all the stylistic means that I have used when writing this text. I will show you what like I meant in this text. So I was trying to use some alliteration with the sounds in the title, as well as some personification, like has crawled, so yes, as if a person. Of course, I couldn't avoid using personal pronouns like you to appeal to you and to establish the connection, as well as a rhetorical question, to trigger some interest or to let you think about your experience. I've used some intensifiers, like for example, absolutely crucial. So here the dictionary of collocations helped me in choosing the precise intensifier. And the rule of three, I like it very much. So discuss, we will talk, and create. And also at the end, like your program, lab, or department. So I've used it even twice. So this rule of three. Well, which means that you don't need to overload your text with stylistic devices, but you can choose some to make your text more emphatic. And this is what I suggest doing right now. In task 5, you are asked to create your own advertisement, at least to start writing it. Could be your first draft. So think about the object, so of advertising, what you're going to advertise. The goal, like what are you going to do with it? Will you inform? Will you persuade the audience to do something, or will you just remind it of some product or service? And keep the target audience in mind. So can you please write a short text with a title? At least start writing, and try to use some advertising techniques or linguistic devices in it. You can use dictionary of collocations or thesauri, for example, in Cambridge Dictionary. So, let's summarize what we have discussed today. Whenever you need to write an advertising text in the academic world, you need to first of all identify the goals, why you're writing. So to persuade, to remind, or to inform. And keep in mind your target audience, because the language somehow could be different. If students, you can be a bit less formal, but be careful with jargon not to turn your advertising campaign into a failure. Then you can choose from a variety of types of advertising, depending on the system or the means that you're going to include in your advertising, like how you're going to advertise this or that thing. Think about your style. So it is still academic because we live in the academic world when we talk about HSE, but it allows you, it gives you more freedom in using stylistic devices, personal pronouns, imperatives, and so on. And if you want to attract the attention of your audience, you can use some linguistic devices, stylistic features that will hopefully make your advertising memorable. Don't forget about fonts, colors, images. They also draw the attention of even a passerby to a certain advertisement. The references that I have used and mentioned in my text in my presentation today. And at this, thank you very much. And I wish you good luck with your further experience in advertising so that your advertising actually fulfills the objectives that you set for them.